Hello and welcome to another episode of the Connection Compass podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Louise Evans. On Monday, the 20th of October, I'm holding an event in Manchester, building safer spaces for people to thrive through the holistic lens. If you are interested in leadership, an aspiring leader, or an interest in culture change, please check the show notes for further details. I'd love to see you there. This week's episode is a special one. Marking almost a year since the Connection Compass podcast began, I invited heart healing coach Ashley Mondor, who we met at the beginning of the third series of the podcast, to turn the tables and interview me. Together, we explore what it's been like to dream of having a podcast and finally bringing it to life. How the process has helped me heal, rebuild confidence, and return to my most authentic self. We talk about working through the trauma of the pandemic, rediscovering my voice, and how meeting people through the podcast has reminded me of the power of connection. I share reflections on taking an unconventional path, learning to make friends with fear, or not in my case, and building strong roots beneath the surface, trusting flow, intuition, and the slow work of legacy. We also explore the deeper healing that comes from honouring our lineage, belonging to the cycles of nature, and cultivating meaning in this current season of life. Hi, Ashley!
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for coming back and to help me with this episode. I really, really appreciate it. So, you are interviewing me.
Yeah. And this is a big deal because in October, what are we celebrating?
The first anniversary of the podcast, its first birthday, which I'm really super excited because the idea from the podcast just came. I was laying in bed one day and I just kind of opened my eye in the morning and just opened my eyes. I was like, I think I'll start a podcast. And it has just been an absolute joy. It really has. And I've met so many lovely people across the world like yourself. And here in the UK, and people have just been so open and just really understanding of what I'm trying to do, like with the podcast, and really so that people can hear people's stories beyond what they see on the surface and to be inspired by people's journeys and to know that they never plain sailing. There's so many twists and turns. And I think also we have quite a wide age range on the podcast. And I think what we don't say enough is that we're still developing. I turned 50 in June and I'm still developing. I'm still learning. It doesn't just end like when you leave school.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for you. I remember I had always wanted a podcast, but I was too afraid of having it because I thought, what if people don't find it valuable? What if my voice is annoying? Will I have enough content? So, have you always wanted to have a podcast, or this dropped in and you were like, I'm going to go for it?
I did always want a podcast. I was really inspired by a podcast by a lady called Kiki K. So she has a station which she used to have like or still does, I think, but she has a book and a podcast called Your Dream Life. And I was always so inspired by that podcast. And it was very similar about stories and people's journeys. And I remember hearing a story from about a lady who lived in Africa as a young girl and she just got this opportunity to go on this educational journey, and I was just so inspired by it, and I just thought, I cannot say that I can't do anything anymore. I was just so inspired by these stories, and I just thought I would really love to do that one day, not thinking that I would actually do something, and I honestly didn't think I'd get past the first series.
Oh my God, I love that, especially because it speaks to follow your heart because you have that for a reason, that pull, that tug, that drive. So for you to honor that because you were inspired by someone else, right, in
Yeah.
spirit,
Mm.
I
Yeah.
was I was gonna ask you, do you feel like in the process of having this podcast, you've learned anything about yourself, or have you expanded on anything or deepened anything?
I would say that it's made me more confident in myself. I had to say I lost a lot of confidence, I think, during 2020. I was a nurse working in a pandemic, and something really horrible happened that shocked me to the core. So I walked into the room really confident, and there was a sudden death, and I went out a completely different person. And I think it's just really helped me to rebuild my confidence in myself. I'm very much like, if I have an idea, I really like to run with it. Doesn't matter if it doesn't work out or not. Have a whole stream of ideas that don't work out. But sometimes things just do. And I think it's bringing me back home to that confidence again, and this is me, this is my element, and all the different parts of it about speaking, having conversations, making those connections across the world. That is just me, or all over. But it disappeared, that part of me for a few years. So the podcast has helped me to come back.
Oh my gosh, I love that. For you, you mentioned about the pandemic and being a nurse and things like that. You're not a nurse anymore?
I'm still registered nurse. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna ask, for you in that process, because so many people really and we're still seeing the shockwaves of the trauma from the pandemic, but you were truly the first line of defense.
Mm.
How have you worked through that? How did you release that energy, or what were your processes for that? Because, wow.
Yeah, that's a really big question because it's 5 years ago, but it doesn't seem like 5 years ago at all. And some of those memories, like the one that I just talked about, like the sudden death, it's still with me every single day. So I would say that I'm still processing some things from the pandemic. I think there were so many horrible things, lots of elements, lots of things that people didn't see or maybe weren't aware of, that just made it horrendous experience. I think after the event where there was a sudden death, I started to have a struggle speaking. So whenever I'm tired, whenever I'm not upset, whenever I'm poorly, or it's my throat that goes the first, and I really started to struggle to speak and get my words out, and it was like that for about 9 months afterwards. I think I finally managed to start speaking properly about it about 9 months after, with some support. And some days I still need support, sometimes I don't. So, sometimes I think I don't know, it's just something that will stay with me, I think. And I've worked in Northern Uganda on an Ebola outbreak, but I think COVID was just something else. And I think we'll be processing it for a long time, because when things started going back to normal and other things were happening around the world, it was almost like those experiences got compacted in some way, and there was another layer on top and another layer on top. And I don't think there are many of us that haven't processed those moments fully. And I think we'll still be processing it for quite some time, because we're never really given the space to speak about it and the experiences. I think some people did, but certainly that wasn't my experience, and having to seek professional help outside of that, and quite some time after.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you would lose your voice, right? And then you have the download to start a podcast in order to be your own medicine,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
bring stories out like that.
Yeah. Because my voice has never really been the same since COVID. And because obviously I was poor, well, I think we all got poorly with COVID, but I was quite sick, and I don't think the psychological part have helped either. And so I lost my voice. And then, even though I went to other roles, I'd always been a teacher, an educator, but those opportunities were a bit about few and far between, and I was still struggling with my voice. And I remember when I was thinking about the podcast, I was thinking, "Oh, but my voice isn't strong enough. I know I need to speak because that's part of me as well." So, yeah, I think it's been quite healing actually, and both in terms of voice and also confidence as well. And I feel so me when I'm in that energy of podcasting and just talking to people.
I also that's why I love podcasting because I love amplifying people's voices. There's something about
Yeah.
it where you're like, "You have such an incredible story, and I have a platform, like, why not jam about it?"
Yeah, yeah, and, the, group that we're part of where the podcast that is an amazing group, and I remember thinking, "Oh, I'm really worried, like, I'll put a call out for people to come on and no one's gonna come on," and then all of a sudden all these amazing people, and I had, like, about 4 series worth of content, I was like, "This is amazing." But it's funny, I have episodes I'm probably about 4 short of Christmas, and I was like, "What's gonna happen afterward?" But you just know that someone's gonna come from somewhere, the people will appear.
What I love too is how silly our brains are because it's like, "What if no one comes? What if no one wants to be a part of this?" And then they're like, "Hello, yes, I'm in your feed."
"Yeah, I'm coming, I'll come on your podcast." Yeah, it's great, and people are so enthusiastic. I think, people in that group are very, very enthusiastic about podcasting and what they do, isn't it? It's really got a vibe.
Yeah, well, and there's something about there's in this group specifically, it's like people have some understanding of the type of work it takes to even put on one episode, you know?
Yeah.
There's a deeper level of gratitude because you're like, "This is your time and your life, and you're probably paying for a platform so that I can come on and be interviewed by you." Like, what an honor that is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I also am wondering, because you've done this, right, for a year,
Mhm.
if there was ever a story that you wished you could have shared, but you didn't have the space, maybe it's something around your own healing, maybe something around the training you've walked through, something that you've learned. What is a story that you'd love to share now because you have the space?
Wow, that's a huge question. Yes. What I think that I look back over the years that have gone by, I haven't lived that traditional path at all that you learn about, I suppose, when you're small and you see all your friends doing. And I think that at times it's left me quite isolated, I would say, and a little bit confused about what's going on. But I look back now and I think, oh my gosh, this is an incredible story. This is amazing. I've had so many amazing experiences. I've met so many amazing people. I've I I went from somebody that was very academic to somebody that was very creative, making jewelry and at one point and selling it across the world and writing and the blogs that I've done and the people that I've met. And the more that I push myself out of my comfort zone, the more I meet the people who are on my wavelength or who've led other lives that are not that traditional path that we see when we're younger. So I suppose I look back and think, oh, yeah, I have been isolated at times, but I've had these incredible experiences. And I think we only get a one shot at life for ever how long we're here for. And there's so much opportunity, and things don't happen straight away. Sometimes we have to work really hard at things and things take a really long time, but it's so it's so worth it. And it's the people that you just meet along the way that just make it in those experiences. So I suppose that's the story that I would share, I think, and I hope somebody is listening who is perhaps not in a great place and just thinking, yeah, I'm gonna give this a go. I've heard this lady speak, and something really opens up for them that they find their path because it is there, opportunities there. Sometimes we just have to make sacrifices, like we might have to save before we do something, or we might have to step out of our comfort zone. But that's what life's about, isn't it? So, and riding the waves, really. Mm.
Mm. I love what you touched on, partially because I know your journey, right? I know snippets of it, but it's really cool because what you're saying is, "I had this in my heart, even though my brain was afraid, I'm gonna try." And then you said you expand beyond your comfort zone. And the key about that is, like, you taught yourself how to make jewelry, you taught yourself how to do these things, how to blog, how to have a podcast, all of this stuff, so then you're only skilling yourself and maybe even others who someday will probably wanna learn from you, right?
Yeah. In fact, earlier I was teaching somebody about the podcasting experience and things to look at. So, which a year ago I didn't have a clue. Like, I didn't have a clue about this stuff. So, and now I do. And I'm able to say, you want to look at this or you want to look at that. I think about this. And that's really, really nice.
Do you know what your profile lines are in human design?
Oh, what does that mean? So I know I'm a manifesting generator, but I'm not quite sure what the
Yes.
lines are. Yeah.
It's like I'm a 6-2 projector.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna have to message me because I have a curiosity about that.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. As a manifesting generator, it makes sense though the why your life is the way that it is, right? You follow your inspiration,
Yes.
what
Yeah.
lights you up, and then you're like, "Bing, bing, bing, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna
Yeah.
do this, I'm gonna
Definitely.
go."
And it absolutely makes no sense to anybody else. But to me, it's like really logic. Yeah.
Well, and another key that you touched on that I think is just incredible is you're like, you have to expand beyond your comfort zone. You have to
Yeah.
try, right? But a lot of people are even afraid of trying because what if they fail?
Yeah.
What if they don't learn? What if they waste the money? What if they waste the time? What if all of the reasons why they shouldn't try or do the thing? How have you consistently made friends with your fear in a way where you're able to have these experiences?
Yeah. Me and my fear are not friends. We're not friends, and it's a constant struggle every day. I am full of fear. I am full of fear. My brain is just overrides the heart all the time, but the desire to do something, the experience, the development of the skills, the fact that I might meet more people to connect with and have great conversations is far greater than the fear, I would say.
Mm, that like when they say your why, the reason why you're doing something has to be bigger than the fear, bigger than what's known. For
Yeah.
you to consistently meet that and do it, and now look
Yeah.
at, like, what you're experiencing is so incredible.
Yeah. I have a very strong internal drive. So if I want to do something, I'm really focused and I make it happen. And even if sometimes those steps are really tiny, like every single day, like I'll do something every single day to work towards it. If I feel, if my body really needs a rest, if I'm tired, if I'm hitting a brick wall, then I'll take a step back. And what I find is then when I go to it, I'm in a much stronger place to push forwards. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
compounding, like interest.
Yeah.
Your steps are that, right, and then you find out, "Oh, I get to the destination somehow if I meant to, and look at everything I brought with me along the way."
Yeah, definitely. And I think, we were talking earlier about the work that I've produced, and it's had a 9 year cycle. So it fits in the 9 year cycle in terms of numerological years. 2017, I had this tiny idea, and I can't tell you how frustrated I've been sometimes because it hasn't made sense and it feels like I've been hitting brick walls. But there's just something inside of me that says, just get up, just do more, just keep going. And it's really funny, but I felt like I really wanted to just walk away from it recently. And then I've been doing this development spiritual course, and it's just really opened things up. It's opened like another layer into something else. And it's like, how, where's this layer come from? How can this work have a layer even more? And but each time I'm being pushed outside of my comfort zone and I'm having to grow into that. And that's why I feel it's taken quite a long time, but I really feel strongly and passionate that what I've got, that somehow it plays a part in creating a better world for all of us.
Yes. And as someone who is walking her talk and becoming the embodiment of this, of the future of the world that you're hoping to live in, like, what type of person are you becoming? How are you leading your life?
I think I'm that person that overcomes fear every single day. So even though I feel it, I still take action. And someday I have absolutely no idea where I'm going. It's like a blindfolded, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Why am I wasting time on this? But it leads to something else. And I used to say it was like a big putting together a big jigsaw, but this jigsaw has layers as well. I think I'm somebody who is now really learning to create strong foundations for herself and for her work that allows that work to then grow. And I think without that strong foundation, it wouldn't have gone anywhere. And well, in its ninth year, and saying, "I can't believe I'm working on this fear still," but I have to work on that fear to create a stronger foundation so that the work will grow. Or I have to heal parts of myself that I know have been, where I've been hurt and I've been upset, to push forwards with the work. So, yeah, so perhaps somebody that's just moving beyond the fear to create a stronger foundation for something to grow, for an idea that I had 2017 in the briefest moment, that we needed a culture of something more, for us in places that we live and work in. Yeah.
Yeah. And while you were talking, I got the image, like, 2017 was your seed year,
Definitely. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then you see the roots grow first, and you're building such a massive root structure for your foundation.
So if we come to 2017 and we had this seed year, and it was just an idea, that idea of listening to managers talk and just realizing that they were really struggling with lack of confidence and fear. And I hadn't expected that. It was a completely my assumption that they wouldn't be feeling like that. But they're human beings, so of course they would feel like that. And then that second year, I started to link it to like yoga practice and things that I would think of and journal after like yoga practice. So things started to connect. And then I became really creative with it and started expressing these ideas through poetry. And in some ways it hasn't been linear. So I wouldn't say I had the seed, then I grew the roots. um, I would say that I had the seed, then I had all these pieces of the puzzle that come together. And I would say it's really only in the past year that I've grown the roots. I've solidified the foundation and grown the roots.
It does, and also you're moving with flow and intuition versus linear
Yeah,
because, like, the seed is in the darkness, and that's you've been in this void space of creation.
yeah. And it's definitely not a journey of logic. There's been nothing about the journey that's been logic. It's all been heart, intuition, feeling, joining dots, putting things aside, leaving them, knowing that they would make sense at some point. And then 4 years down the line, when I'm kind of writing the values and putting strategic objectives in place and working out how it has a place in time, in modern day time, and then look back and going, "Oh, I had that information there. That fits with that." Even though it's like it's been years.
Well, and that flies in the face of the way we've been conditioned, which is you need to move now, you need to have all the answers now, you need
Yeah.
instant gratification versus you're
Mm.
saying, I'm building a legacy really of something energetically I want to put out into the world that will have ripples in the most beautiful ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see where it goes. I've had a couple of moments where I've just been like I mentioned earlier about wanting to give up, and I was just saying, "I can't believe this work's wasted. I can't believe this work," but I think it will go somewhere eventually.
Yes. So, can you give me a glimpse about this new layer that you've discovered?
Yeah, so this new layer has come because I think this course, it's really helped me to sit up and think about who I am, and I that I'm actually quite confident, but sometimes I don't always feel it. I'm not an extrovert at all. I'm completely introverted, and I would quite happily live under a rock.
Happily.
Well, no, I've got all these skills, I've got all this knowledge. Where's the confidence? So I think this new layer has been about building confidence and really seeing the scope of the work and how it actually fits in with what's happening in modern day society. So I this is my perception. It is a feeling that I get that we seem to be in a place of jarring. We know that there's polarization and we're not really moving on from that. So if you observe conversations and look at social media and look at the posts, there is a jarring and it doesn't feel like we're going to get out of that jarring. So the only way to get out of that is to step out of it and do think and see and think about things in a very different way. So to me, it's about creating a very different world with different perceptions about ourselves and about each other, and that we are working holistically. So, what I mean by that is that we're working from the heart, we're connecting logic and intuition, we are connecting the levels of the human sphere, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I mean about the spiritual in this context is about our passion and our purpose and what lights us up. And then we take all that, so our whole selves, our whole holistic selves, but then we start to link it with the story, our childhood stories, ancestral stories, and education, how we've managed the early adult years, right through to the social and political environment that we're living in, and then vice versa. So we're connecting all those elements together instead of different parts of and just parts of them in isolation. And that's I think when you look at things from that scope, you have very different perceptions of things. And I think that's where we can start to find solutions for everybody.
Yes. Going above the problem into a different frequency.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I love that. So, for you, say there's something that you wanna do that you're not feeling super confident about because it's
Mm.
new or you just haven't had the experience yet. How do you start that process? Because I feel like I can hear people saying like, "Well, I have a dream. Maybe I wanna start writing on social or I wanna write a book or I wanna have a podcast or I wanna do these things. I wanna have a business." But it's so big. I'm just like, "Can I do that? Am I capable? I'm not like her who has these things, you know?"
Yeah, and I do have that. So, I always start. So whatever I want to do, I always start or make some attempts anyway, and then at some point, somewhere along the line, I will hit a brick wall and say so one of the things was that I didn't actually do particularly well at school, and it always creeps up on me somewhere. Like if I hit a brick wall, it's always like, "Yeah, but you failed. You 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 failed 34 years ago. Do you really think you can do that?" So it's almost like, and I suppose I've been on this journey and leaning into the holistic self, the spiritual elements for 14 years now. So I've got very good at scanning. You know, like, is it this? Was it when I was 16, or is it something a little bit further back? Actually, was this something that happened in my adult year, in that job that I didn't really enjoy? So I'm like scanning all the time and looking at perhaps what I've been exposing myself to, what stories have I been exposing to, what's going on out there that's upsetting me at the moment, or this, and I start no, social media connects people, and it's amazing in that way. There is a negative element, so you do see things, you are exposed to things, and there's lots of talk. Well, what makes you think you can do that? And if you didn't do well at school, and so it's connecting all those elements.
When you are in the scanning process and you're like, "Did this happen at 16?" Because I know that you are in the somatic world, do you
Mm.
feel like, "Oh, it was 16," and you feel it in your gut, or do you just have this inner knowing and it's like
It's an inner
intuition?
knowing. Yeah, it's an inner knowing, so I might get an image, a memory, and you're like, "Oh, yeah, it's that." So, actually, sometimes when I can tell that something is brewing, I can feel it in the pit of my stomach, I'm quite adept now, so I'm like, "Oh, something's moving here," and if you just allow it to come through rather than suppress it, it will reveal itself in some way, but it's usually never anything that you can deal with. It might not be very nice. Your memory might not be very nice, but I always think when things come up like that, it's nothing that you can't deal with.
Well, and I know partially one of the most incredible things about being alive right now is that so many of us are cycle breakers or change makers and
Mm.
things like that. Like you said, we are leading a new world. Have you found that you, through your work, have healed anything specifically in your lineage?
I think I would say that I came from a multicultural family. So on the maternal side, made up of Polish, Italians, and English. And my Polish grandparents, grandparents, they were displaced, and they lived in Poland, and there was a Russian invasion, and that part of Poland is not in Poland anymore, it's in Ukraine. And I think that I didn't really understand it when I was younger, but there was a feeling that there was something missing. And so it's like a piece of the puzzle of belonging is missing, even though you can't quite explain why that is. It's just a knowing that something's not quite right. And I think it was after Brexit happened when the UK left the European Union, and I felt bereft. And it was really then that I sat up and realized, and I was like, "Oh, that's part of my lineage to be part of the wider European Union, and who am I now?" But it was around that time that I started to find that anchor, that sense of belonging in the seasons. So, working with the seasons, being creative, so around that time, so I wasn't writing so much, but I was making jewelry, and I was making jewelry in alignment with the seasons, and I'd not long moved into the house that I lived in now, and the garden was a blank canvas, so I started growing a garden from scratch, and I think that's when I really started to feel that actually I belonged to part of something bigger, that it wasn't just about having this European heritage, that actually we're part of something bigger, of so much more.
Because we are nature made manifest.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, and for you to find belonging, which is a core subconscious wound, right?
Mm.
Belonging, not safe, not enough, unworthy, unlovable, things like that.
Yeah, and I think all those things, again, I think it's something that we're not telling younger generations enough, that those things are actually transient. That we don't feel safe, we don't belong, we don't feel loved all the time. Those things, they wax and wane almost through your life, and it's about finding that sense of safety within yourself, or being able to, we're always gonna be knocked off our centre. Something's always gonna come along that will knock us sideways, but it's about finding ourselves back to that center and that sense of belonging, that we are part of the world. I there's something that I write, and the earth spins about 1,000 miles per hour, and then the force of gravity holds us in place on the earth to the spot of where we are. What makes you think we don't belong here? Here we do.
That's such an image. Also, I've never thought about it in that way. My brain is like, "Whoa, you're right."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and I heard a quote. Bashar is one of my favorite channelers, and he said, "If you weren't meant to exist, you wouldn't be here, but creator, source, God, the universe knew you specifically needed to exist." And to your point about the jigsaw puzzle, all of us are a single piece that fits into the greater
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah, definitely. And, I was over lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh my gosh. Oh, forget it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
We're just on Earth together, baby, just moving through time and
Just
space.
together. When you think about everything that needs to happen for us to be here, all the little steps, all the chemistry, the biochemistry that have to be in place, it's a miracle that we're here at all. So the fact that we're here, it's, we've got to enjoy life.
Yes. So as you're enjoying life and you're expanding beyond your fear and your comfort zone and all of these things, I'd love to ask you one more question.
Yeah, sure.
What are you cultivating in this season of your life?
Oh, what am I cultivating? I think just wanting to be really comfortable with where I am and happy with where I am and everything that I've achieved, and that feeling of gratitude. But I hope the foundation that I've cultivated for this work really does help it grow, and that it does help people, because I think it will. I really do believe we need some different perspectives at the moment, and we need really good, strong leaders that see leadership as service based, that it's not about taking liberties for yourself, but about really supporting and helping people to grow and thrive in the future.
And you're all about heart-led leadership, right?
I'm all about heart-led leadership. Yeah.
Thank you for the work that you do. I know, I know, you are going to bloom and it is going to be incredible. And also because I know your heart. Like people people will be so grateful to have your wisdom, your experience, your teachings. So just know spring is coming
Yeah. Yeah,
and you're well
definitely.
on your way.
Oh, thank you so much, Ashley, for helping me today. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
That was a brilliant episode. I really enjoyed talking to Ashley this week, and being able to use my voice for my own podcast, which is really nice to be able to share a little bit more of my story. It's next Wednesday that is the official first birthday of the podcast, so I will be back with a solo episode, perhaps adding some more depth and context to some of the things that Ashley and I have been speaking about, and I will talk more on the development of the Connection Compass Framework, which is the name of the body of work that I have produced, and perhaps with some ideas about where we're going to go next with that. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Connection Compass. If you think it will help someone else, please leave a review. If you are interested in coming to the event in Manchester on Monday, the 20th of October, where we will be looking at and discussing and exploring what it means to build safer spaces where we live and work in the current day, and also building trust and the importance of mental health, please check the show notes for the details. You're absolutely more than welcome to come along. If you have any questions about the podcast, please visit Andrea L. Evans' Facebook page. And remember to keep talking, keep connecting for a more interconnected world.